Namaskar. This is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. We begin with a White House summit. Donald Trump met European leaders. It was meant to deliver breakthroughs. Instead, it ended with no deal and the prospect of more talks. We'll bring you the big takeaways. Also the viral moments, the hot mics, the eye rolls and a presidential call in the middle of dinner. Plus round 2 of the Trump-Zelensky encounter in the Oval Office. Less drama than the last time with the Ukrainian leader dressed up in a suit. And even as the cameras captured the handshakes, Russian drones were pounding Ukraine. We will bring you up to speed with the war. Also discuss if Europe is being the roadblock to peace. Meanwhile, in Asia, all eyes are on the India-China reset. Beijing's top diplomat Wang Yi called on Prime Minister Modi. We'll tell you what happened. Why Indian trains are introducing airline-style baggage limits. How the monsoon has brought Mumbai to a halt again. It's time to stop celebrating the spirit of the city and ask if it's resilience or resignation. In Africa, peace talks with the M23 rebels collapse as violence flares up in DR Congo. And in tech, a reality check on generative AI. A new report says 95% of pilot projects are failing. All this and more coming up. The headlines first. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu slams his Australian counterpart, calls Anthony Albanese a weak politician and accuses him of betraying Australia's Jews. The remarks come amid a diplomatic row between the two countries after Canberra declared it would recognize a Palestinian state at the United Nations General Assembly in September. Myanmar shuts down its busiest trade crossing with Thailand for the second consecutive day. The junta says it is to block funds being used to arm opposition groups. Ahead of the election in December, every month, the route sees more than $120 million of trade between the neighboring countries. Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro says that he will deploy millions of militia members to respond to threats by the US. The warning comes after Washington raised the bounty for his arrest and launched anti-drug operations in the Caribbean. Venezuelan militia is reported to have around 5 million people. Monsoon rains in Pakistan killed nearly 400 people in less than a week. Efforts are on to recover dozens of buried bodies. More than 350 people have died in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa alone. Torrential rains across Pakistan's north have triggered floods and landslides. The weather is unlikely to improve till Saturday. And Air Canada's flight attendants end their strike after they reach a tentative deal with the airline. Nearly 10,000 flight attendants went on strike last Saturday, demanding better wages and compensation for unpaid ground work. The protest affected travel for 500,000 people worldwide.
The ceasefire. Security guarantees.
Security guarantees.
Security guarantees.
Security guarantees. But this is the best I have. It's good. You look great.
The White House is no stranger to summits. It has hosted dozens of leaders over the years. And yet, yesterday was special. 8 world leaders descended on Washington. Together, they huddled with Donald Trump in the White House. It was almost like a flashback, a rewind of the heydays of the transatlantic partnership. Let's look at the attendees first. Like I said, 8 leaders were at the White House. Ukraine's President Zelensky, French President Emmanuel Macron, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, Finnish President Alexander Stubb, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, EU President Ursula von der Leyen and NATO Chief Mark Rutte. These are the big players in Europe. All of them rushed to the White House on Monday. Why? To plot the next steps in Ukraine. This meeting was a follow-up to Friday. That's when Trump met Russian President Putin in Alaska. He got a feel of where the Russians stood. Now it was time to meet the other side, the Europeans. And how did it go? Well, the optics were extremely good. The White House was buzzing with diplomats and translators. Europe turned up the flattery to an 11. Trump soaked in all the attention and the cameras loved every minute of it. But beyond the symbolism, what did this summit achieve? There were three main highlights. Number one, there could be a meeting between Putin and Zelensky. Says who? Donald Trump. He called up Putin after yesterday's summit, and the US says Putin is ready to meet Zelensky. Now, just to be clear, the Russians have not confirmed this. But Trump has made the announcement anyway. Listen to what he said. I called President Putin and began the arrangements for a meeting at a location to be determined between President Putin and President Zelensky. After that meeting takes place, we will have a trilateral, which would be the two presidents plus myself. Ukraine has long wanted this summit, but Russia has resisted. They wanted a peace deal before the meeting. As for Europe, they're thrilled about it. They feel it's a chance to put pressure on Putin. And Zelensky has welcomed the idea. He says territory issues can only be discussed between himself and Putin.
I think that the president heard me, and he saw it. We had different moments, but this is important information. That's why the matter of territories is a matter that we will leave between me and Putin.
The American president spoke with the Russian president on the phone and agreed that there will be a meeting between the Russian president and the Ukrainian president within the next 2 weeks. This meeting is to take place at a location that has yet to be agreed upon.
So we have the agenda and the timeline. Zelensky wants to discuss territories with Putin, and the timeline is around 2 weeks. If confirmed, this would be significant. Putin and Zelensky have met only once before. That was in 2019, before the war. Another meeting could result in some progress. Which brings us to highlight number 2. Trump was vague on security guarantees. Now, this has been a long-standing demand of Ukraine. They want protection against future attacks. Of course, Trump has ruled out NATO. So Kiev was hoping for some other guarantees. And remember, Europe is already on board on this one, on security guarantees. But Ukraine wants the US to join as well. Here's what Trump told Zelensky.
There'll be a lot of help. When it comes to security, there's going to be a lot of help. It's going to be good. They are first line of defense because they're there. They're Europe. But we're going to help them out also. We'll be involved.
So Trump is putting the onus on Europe. He says Europe is the first line of defense. And America? Trump says they will be involved, which is not very encouraging for Zelensky, but he's going with the flow for the moment. Zelensky wants a clear signal of US guarantees. He says they will be decided in 10 days.
It is important that the United States is sending a clear signal that it will be among the countries helping to coordinate and will also be a participant in the security guarantees for Ukraine. I believe this is a major step forward.
I was able to go over again, this afternoon, on the content of these security guarantees, which consist of a robust Ukrainian army, which carries weight and can resist and deter any attempted attack. And so without limitations in numbers, capabilities, weapons, etc.
There's also talk of an arms deal, a whopping $90 billion agreement. This would involve Ukraine buying US weapons, things like warplanes and air defenses. Macron also hinted at this. He says Ukraine must be allowed to have a robust army. Chances are Russia will not allow that. They will want Ukraine to be demilitarized. There is also talk of a mutual defense commitment, a promise to defend Ukraine in the future. It's a bit like NATO's Article 5. This article, Article 5, says that if one NATO member is attacked, all of them will hit back. The idea is to give this protection to Kiev. Basically, NATO without joining NATO. The proposal came from Italy's Giorgia Meloni.
We have been invited to contribute with diplomatic proposals, and we are pleased that the starting point for security guarantees is an Italian proposal to build effective security guarantees inspired by Article 5 of the NATO-Washington Treaty. Clearly, we have to work on this.
Which brings us to the final takeaway. Differences over a ceasefire. Trump has abandoned his pursuit of a ceasefire. He wants a package peace deal, basically one deal to end the fighting and its root causes. One deal to cover all of it. But Europe is not on board. Several European leaders still want a ceasefire. They feel it is the first step to peace.
To be honest, we all would like to see a ceasefire, the latest from the next meeting on. I can't imagine that the next meeting would take place without a ceasefire.
In the 6 wars that I've settled, I haven't had a ceasefire. We just got into negotiations, and one of the wars was, as you know, in the Congo was 31 years long. Another one that we settled last week with 2 great countries was 35 years going on, and we had no ceasefire. So if we can do the ceasefire, great. And if we don't do a ceasefire, because many other points were given to us, many points were given to us, great points.
That sums up the summit. There is hope of a Putin-Zelensky meeting, there is confusion about US guarantees, and there are differences over a ceasefire. What about the other side? I'm sure Russia was watching the summit keenly. We've heard multiple reactions already. Former President Dmitry Medvedev was at it again. Listen to what he said. I'm quoting, "The anti-Russian warmongering coalition of the willing failed to outplay Trump on his turf. Europe thanked and sucked up to him." Harsh as always. But what about the official position? Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has responded. He made 2 crucial claims. Number 1, Ukraine will have to give up territory.
Territorial changes are often an essential component of conflict resolution. There are many such examples. I would like to emphasize once again that we have never talked about the need to seize any territories. Neither Crimea, nor Donbass, nor Novorossiya as territories have ever been our goal. Our goal was to protect Russian people who lived on these lands for centuries.
And number 2, a Putin-Zelensky meeting is possible. Lavrov says Russia is open to any format, but he also said that arranging such a meeting will take time. And if it does happen, I'm sure the hype will be unreal. Unfortunately, hype does not create peace. You need to make concessions for that. Zelensky seems open to discussing land swaps, but on security guarantees, his position is unchanged. He wants NATO-style protection, which is, of course, a non-starter for Russia. So while the prospect of a summit is great, it is not enough. What we need is the prospect of peace. If diplomacy was a Netflix show, then the White House on Monday was its messiest season ever. Also perhaps the most binge-worthy one. You had Donald Trump back in his favorite role of ringmaster. You had Volodymyr Zelensky all suited up by the strict stylist, that is the Trump administration. And then you had the rotating cast, the band of European leaders. They were part bodyguards and part unwilling extras, trying to hold the stage together. Thankfully, no shouting match broke out this time, although that does not mean that everything went smoothly. And as always, there were viral moments. We have compiled the best ones for you. Number 1, the hot mic moments. And there were quite a few of them this time. Meetings like this one are supposed to be tightly scripted, except no one told this to Donald Trump. So he says what he wants and wherever he wants. And just ahead of the talks, Trump confided in the French president with a mic on.
I think he wants to make a deal for me. You understand that? As crazy as it sounds. Just sit down. Sit down, everybody.
Okay.
I think we'll let the press come in for a minute. Please.
The he is, of course, Vladimir Putin. Trump thinks that Putin wants a deal because of Trump. Now, we're not sure that's how it works, but kudos to Macron. He tries to not respond, and it still became the soundbite of the day. Of course, this was not the only oops moment. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni had a similar one when she was talking about her own press. Listen to this.
Do you guys want to take some questions or anything? You feel like it? Huh? See. Hi, Mark. All the time.
But he loves it. He loves it. For he does it always. I never want to speak with my friends.
He's a very good...
And talking about Meloni brings us to our second viral moment, the Italian Prime Minister's many expressions, especially her dramatic eye rolls. Maybe that's what happens when you're constantly surrounded by male leaders. But Meloni cannot seem to help herself, and the cameras caught her mid-summit, rolling her eyes many times as other European leaders spoke.
But now he's the NATO Secretary General, and you're doing a dry lap after that. And
Next meeting would take place without a ceasefire. Because the credibility of these efforts we are undertaking today are depending on emphasize this aspect, and would like to see a ceasefire from the next.
take a lot of the burden. We're going to help them.
Viral moment number 3, the compliment roulette. You know that uncle at every family dinner, the one who sits at the head of the table, pulls everyone close, goes around the table, and then traps you in his stories. Well, in this case, that uncle was Donald Trump.
He's too tall for me.
He's a tall guy. Good looking.
I never want him near. I prefer Volodymyr.
Well, we're building a big a ballroom. Beautiful. Right here. If you go, it would be right through that. Right through here.
Well, we saw the ballroom at Pentagon. That was.
And while he did compliment people, it wouldn't be a Trump summit without at least one name mix-up. That's our viral moment number 4. This time, the unlucky victim was the Finnish president. His name is Alexander Stubb. Trump first announced his name. Then he started scanning the room like someone calling roll in a classroom. And all the while, Stubb was right in front of him.
President Stubb of Finland, and he's somebody that, where are we here? Where?
I'm right here.
Oh, you look better than I've ever seen you look.
Viral moment number 5 was the family photo. Summits always end with a group photo. It is called the family photo. This one looked less like global unity and more like bad aesthetics. Friedrich Merz towered at 6 feet 6 inches. Giorgia Meloni was a little over 5 feet. Trump, for once, was not the tallest man in the room, and Macron and the lineup resembled a roller coaster.
Not a good day. That was not a great day. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Which brings us to the last one, Trump's 2028 obsession. He became president for the first time in 2017 and then again this year in 2025. And US presidents cannot be in power for more than 2 terms. So Trump cannot run again in 2028, but he really wants to. And he can't seem to let go of the temptation. So first he showed off his MAGA 2028 caps, and then he hinted at another run.
During the war, you can't have elections. So let me just say, 3.5 years from now, so you mean if we happen to be in a war with somebody, no more elections? Oh, that's good. I wonder what the fake
You like this idea?
Yeah.
So all in all, it was a chaotic summit, and while the dinner plates were getting cleared, Trump disappeared. Where did he go? To call Vladimir Putin. Right in the middle of the dinner, the Europeans were left a little confused. It was the diplomatic equivalent of inviting friends over for dinner and then stepping outside to talk to your ex. But that tells you all you need to know. This summit may not be remembered for the breakthroughs, but it will be remembered for the hot mics, the eye rolls, and the one call that Trump just could not wait to make. This is Diplomacy Trump style, and it's only season 1.
He's all dressed up today.
But this is the best I have. It's good. You look great.
You rarely get do-overs on the world stage, but yesterday President Zelensky did. You may remember his last meeting at the White House. It was a total crash and burn, arguably the worst summit in years. Everything that could go wrong, did go wrong. Zelensky's clothes became a flashpoint, his words became a flashpoint, his alleged lack of gratitude became a flashpoint. And eventually, he was kicked out. That happened in February, just a couple of weeks after Trump had taken office. 6 months later, Zelensky was back to where it all went wrong. Naturally, everyone had the same question: would he crash and burn again? Spoiler alert, he did not. Because this time, Zelensky came with a strategy. For starters, he changed his look. Last time, he was wearing his typical military fatigues, but this time, he suited up. A black buttoned-up shirt, a pair of black trousers, and a black jacket. The difference was visible right from the start.
Ready, shot?
He's all dressed up today.
The best I have.
Ready, face? Ready, step?
Inside, the trend continued. In February, Zelensky was grilled about his attire. A journalist asked him why he was not wearing a suit. This time, the same journalists reappeared. But Zelensky had the last laugh, thanks to an assist from Donald Trump.
Why don't you wear a suit?
Why?
Why don't you wear a suit? You're the highest level in this country's office, and you refuse to wear a suit. Just want to see, do you own a suit?
Yeah, you have problems.
A lot of Americans have problems with you not
Really?
respecting
I don't
the
have
office.
such. I will wear a costume after this war will finish.
Okay.
Yes, maybe one.
Maybe something like
like
this.
yours. Yes.
That'd be great.
Maybe something better. I don't know. We will see. Maybe something cheaper than. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
President Zelensky, you look fabulous in that suit.
I said the same thing.
Yeah, you look good.
I said the same thing.
Yeah, looks
Isn't
good
that
on
nice?
you.
That's the one that attacked you last time. See, now he's in.
I remember that.
Yeah, I apologize to you. You look wonderful. No, my first question for you, President Zelensky.
In the same suit. You see, I changed. You are not.
Maybe yours is much better.
The journalist apologized for his earlier remarks, but Zelensky got a parting blow. The whole wardrobe change is quite interesting. Chances are Zelensky made the switch himself. He needs Trump now more than ever. But just to be sure, the White House sent a message. They told Zelensky to wear a suit to this meeting. And clearly it helped. Now we come to the talks. Last time, Zelensky dived right into the main issues. He spoke about security guarantees and ceasefire talks. This time, he started off with some charm. He presented a letter written by his wife, not to Trump, but to First Lady Melania.
I hope that this first document, will be first step to real security guarantees for Ukraine, our people, our children. I really count on it. And using this opportunity, many thanks to your wife, First Lady of the United States. She sent a letter to Putin about our children, abducted children, and my wife, First Lady of Ukraine, she gave the letter. It's not to you, to your wife.
I must say that was smooth. Clearly, Zelensky had done his homework. And he did not stop there. Last time, a major flashpoint was gratitude. Vice President J.D. Vance had jumped into the conversation. He asked how many times Zelensky had said thanks. Well, this time, that's all Zelensky said.
No, have you said thank you once?
A lot of times.
No, in this
Even
entire meeting,
today.
have you said thank you?
Even today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. If I can, first of all, thank you for invitation and thank you very much for your efforts, personal efforts to stop killings and stop this war. Thank you.
Some credit also goes to J.D. Vance. Last time he was like a man possessed. The U.S. Vice President launched an all-out attack on Zelensky, but this time he was silent. Trump also deserves some credit. He was a lot calmer than in February. Back then, he openly scolded Ukraine. He told Zelensky that he did not have the cards. He was asked the same question again yesterday, and the U.S. president gave a totally different response.
From the very beginning of the war,
You're not
Mr.
in a good position. You don't have
in
the cards right now. With us, you start having
not
cards.
playing cards.
But right now, you don't.
I'm very
You're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're gambling
I'm
with the
president
lives
in
of
war.
millions of people.
You think
You're gambling with World War III.
As you listen to Russia and Ukraine, which side has the better cards?
Well, I don't want to say that. I'm just here to be, look, this isn't my war. This is Joe Biden's war. He's the one that had a lot to do with this happening, and we want to get it ended.
This is what homework does. Zelensky was totally unprepared last time. He was used to dealing with Joe Biden, a president who totally indulged Ukraine. But Donald Trump was always going to be different. 6 months later, Zelensky has realized that. Also, this is Ukraine's reality. The fact is, Zelensky needs Trump more than Trump needs Zelensky, which means that he will have to indulge Trump. And why just Zelensky? Even Europe is on the same boat. We saw ample evidence of that today. They could not stop praising Donald Trump.
Yes, I will be very brief. I really want to thank you, President of the United States, dear Donald, for the fact that you, as I said before, broke the deadlock.
The path is open. You opened it last Friday.
Something is changing, something has changed, thanks to you, thanks also to the stalling in the battlefield.
So you can count on us as we can count on you in order to deliver this robust peace for both Ukraine and Europe.
So much for European strategic autonomy. They took turns praising Trump. It tells you how desperate Brussels is. It also tells you how much leverage Trump has. US support is the only thing keeping Ukraine afloat. If Trump pulls that, it's game over. This summit was a brutal reminder of that. Even as Ukraine's president met Donald Trump at the White House, the strikes on Ukraine continued. Yesterday, Russia launched fresh attacks. It struck deep inside Ukrainian territory. The latest target was Poltava. It is home to an important oil refinery. It supplies fuel to the country's military. Moscow says attacking the site was fair game since it's supplying to the military. And the attack came just hours after Trump's meeting with European leaders. Also, since the summit in Alaska, Russian strikes have only intensified and Ukraine has responded in kind. It is targeting Russian supply lines. So as the leaders discuss a potential peace deal, the fighting is getting worse. Here's a report.
This is what Kremenchuk looked like after Russia conducted a missile and drone attack. Kremenchuk is an industrial center. It is located in central Ukraine. It is part of the Poltava region. The strike came yesterday as Ukraine's president met with Donald Trump along with leaders from Europe. The meeting took place at the White House. Hours after it ended, Russia struck Poltava. Ukraine's energy ministry confirmed the attack. It happened overnight. Russian drones targeted energy facilities in the Poltava region. The Poltava region is strategic. It houses Ukraine's only oil refinery. It has been attacked before with drones and missiles. This latest strike targeted that same site. Russia's Interfax news agency confirmed it. They say it was a planned strike on the oil refinery in Kremenchuk. According to Russia, the refinery was supplying fuel for the Ukrainian military. That's the reason they gave for the attack. They say this makes the site a military target. Since Trump met Putin in Alaska, Russian strikes have intensified. At least 21 civilians have been killed. Another 99 have been injured. These numbers are from Ukrainian regional authorities. The attacks began after August 16th, the day of the Alaska summit. There have been several calls for a ceasefire, but Moscow is rejecting them. Russia says there can't be a ceasefire without a final deal, and now Trump appears to agree with the Russians. This means the strikes continue unabated. Today, Ukraine's Air Force reported new attacks. Overnight, Russia launched 270 Shahed drones, along with 5 Iskander-M ballistic missiles and 5 Kh-101 cruise missiles. Ukrainian air defenses intercepted most of them. 230 drones were shot down. So were 6 missiles, but 4 missiles got through, along with 40 drones. They struck 3 locations inside Ukraine. Ukraine has responded with strikes of its own. Long-range drones were deployed. 2 Russian ammunition depots were hit. Ukraine's security service, the SBU, confirmed the strike. The target was the Russian village of Bilokodakino. It sits on a key railway line used by the Russian forces. It is used to supply the front lines. This isn't new. Ukraine has conducted such attacks before repeatedly. It has been targeting Russian logistics hubs inside occupied Ukrainian territory, as well as targets deep inside Russia. This is to disrupt supply chains and weaken frontline capacity. There may be talk of a peace deal, but on the front lines, the fighting is still very much on, and that will be the case until there's a deal.
The battle continues on the ground, but unlike before, talks are also happening. It's not just missiles and drones. We are also seeing a flurry of diplomacy. The question is, will it lead to a comprehensive peace? Well, it's a bit complicated. Usually, such talks involve two sides, the sides which are fighting each other. But here, there are many players. You had 8 world leaders in the White House today. And that could be a problem. Putin says he is ready to settle this at the table. Zelensky says he wants to meet Putin. Trump has always preferred a negotiated settlement. So who exactly is blocking a deal? Could it be Europe? They don't seem to be negotiating in good faith. Most of them do not trust Putin. They don't think he wants peace.
For my part, I have the greatest doubts about the reality of a desire for peace on the part of the Russian president, because as long as he thinks he can win through war, he will do so.
But now, we must remember that Putin is rarely to be trusted. So now it remains to be seen whether he has the courage to come to this type of meeting. Does he have the courage to come to a trilateral meeting, or is he once again playing for time?
Macron went a step ahead. He called Putin a predator at Europe's gates. Now, this attitude is problematic. No one is saying you have to trust Putin 100%, but if you enter negotiations, you need some amount of trust. If not, you're just bluffing. You're entering a negotiation for the sake of it. And that's a recipe for failure. Same with territorial concessions. Russia occupies around 20% of Ukraine. This includes large parts of the eastern provinces, places like Donetsk and Luhansk. Any peace deal must recognize this reality. Even Zelensky appears to have come to terms with it. He says he will discuss territorial issues directly with Putin. Again, it is Europe that is unwilling. The German Chancellor spoke against land swaps.
There must be no territorial concessions forced upon Ukraine. The Russian demand that Kyiv give up the free parts of Donbass is, to put it in perspective, equivalent to the U.S. having to give up Florida. A sovereign state cannot simply decide something like that.
That comparison makes no sense. No foreign army has invaded Florida, but a foreign army has invaded Donbass. Russia controls around 88% of this eastern province. If the war continues, Russia will take over the rest. So how is Donbass the same as Florida? It's not. But it's a convenient excuse for Europe. Russian President Putin also spoke about it in Alaska. He warned Europe against creating obstacles.
We hope that Kyiv and the European capitals will perceive all of this in a constructive manner and will not create any obstacles or attempt to disrupt the emerging progress through provocations or behind-the-scenes intrigues.
There is background here. Europe has tanked peace talks before. Let me take you back to mid-2022. The Russian invasion had just started. Talks were underway in Istanbul to find an early settlement. Russia conveyed its list of demands to Ukraine, but Kiev rejected those demands, that too at the behest of Boris Johnson. He was Prime Minister of Britain back then. Reports say he urged Ukraine to not sign the peace deal. Of course, both Johnson and Zelensky have rejected this claim, but it was reported by Ukrainian media. And the same thing happened last week. Trump announced that he was meeting Putin. He also suggested that land swaps were on the table on cue. Europe published a statement. They said international borders must not be changed by force. Another example is military aid. Earlier this year, Trump stopped sending weapons to Kiev. So what did Europe do? They couldn't manufacture weapons like America, so they decided to buy. Europe bought US weapons and handed them to Ukraine. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's Europe's money, it's Europe's policy. Why can't they do what they want? Well, they can't because European soldiers are not the ones fighting. European cities are not being bombed here. It is Ukraine that is suffering since 2022. Europe will keep buying Russian gas, they will keep funding Putin's war, and they will stonewall any peace efforts. The question is why? Well, look at the timing of this war. It started amid a decline in transatlantic ties. America was pivoting away from Europe. It was more focused on Asia. Back then, the war in Ukraine, but then the war in Ukraine broke out, and suddenly transatlantic ties were back on the table. America was investing in Europe again. Is that why Europe is keen to continue the war? Well, possibly. Another reason is to weaken Russia. Moscow has been building new partnerships. It has warm ties to countries in Eastern Europe. It also has excellent relations in Asia. So a resurgent Russia could have challenged Western Europe's hegemony. Is that why Brussels is dragging the war? Well, maybe it's none of these reasons. Maybe Europe actually believes in international law. Well, they don't in West Asia and Africa, but maybe they do in Ukraine. The fact is, we'll never know. And I know it's hard to trust your rivals, but if Zelensky is willing to sit down with Putin, if Trump is willing to roll out the red carpet for him, then surely Europe can give talks a chance. New Delhi is hosting a key visitor this week, China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi. It's his first visit in 3 years, and it couldn't be more significant. A reset is underway between India and China, and Wang Yi's mission is to repair ties. So far, the diplomacy is matching the expectations. Wang Yi has held a wide range of meetings in India. A few hours back, he met Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Before Prime Minister Modi, Wang Yi met External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar and National Security Advisor Ajit Doval. Progress has been made on several fronts. Let's tell you about them one by one, starting with the border talks. The border conflict has been the biggest source of tensions. But for about a year now, the India-China border has been peaceful. Today, both sides reviewed the progress and some positive signals have emerged. This was in the meeting between Ajit Doval and Wang Yi. Both leaders are special representatives for border talks. Doval said the border has remained quiet. That's the word he used. And that ties between India and China are improving. He called it an upward trend.
I had a wonderful meeting in the last round in Beijing. And I'm very happy that since then, in the last, 9 months, there has been an upward trend. Borders have been quiet. There have been peace and tranquility. Our bilateral engagements have been more substantial. And we are most grateful to our leaders who, in Kazan, in October last, were able to set a new trend. And we have profited a lot since then. The new environment that has been created has helped us in moving ahead in the various areas that we were working on.
Doval also praised Wang Yi for what he called his personal efforts towards improving the relationship. And in response, Wang Yi struck a similar tone. He said that stability is returning to the border. The recent setbacks were not in their interests, and both sides have, and I'm quoting, identified goals. They've agreed on a quote-unquote working framework. This is to better manage the border situation. This is the most significant issue of this relationship, by the way. 5 years back, bilateral ties broke down, and the reason was the deadly clash in Galwan. After a provocation from the Chinese side, troops clashed on the border. There were casualties on both sides. The violence triggered a full-scale standoff. The entire border was militarized. Thousands of troops were deployed on either side, and tensions remained high for months. In fact, this continued until October last year. That's when India and China struck a deal, October 2024. They agreed to withdraw troops from flashpoints. And while the larger border issue still remains unresolved, today's statement inspires confidence because both sides are taking steps towards normalcy. And that's a welcome move. Similarly, there's progress on the trade front. There are reports of a major breakthrough. China has lifted curbs on 3 key exports to India: fertilizers, rare earth minerals and magnets, and tunnel boring machines. New Delhi had made these requests last month when Jaishankar met Wang Yi in Beijing. The Indian External Affairs Minister had travelled to China last month, and now, on his return visit to India, Wang Yi has assured Jaishankar that China is responding to India's request. Reports say the shipments have already begun. Again, this is an important signal that both sides are willing to move forward. Wang Yi is making all the right noises. He said, and I'm quoting, "China and India should establish correct strategic understanding, regard each other as partners and opportunities, not as rivals or threats." Prime Minister Modi's upcoming visit also came up for a discussion. Later this month, the Indian Prime Minister will be in China. He will attend the SCO summit in Tianjin in China. SCO is the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. China has a rotating presidency, so it will host the summit this year. Prime Minister Modi is traveling for the same. And China says it is looking forward to it. In fact, Wang Yi said that Beijing expects India to contribute to a successful summit. So there's a lot of convergence. At the same time, as we've been saying, there are clear fault lines between India and China. And one of them is Taiwan. Taiwan came up during talks between Jaishankar and Wang Yi, and now it has turned into a point of friction because the Chinese side has misrepresented facts. They claim Jaishankar called Taiwan a part of China, and they have published this quote and they're playing it up. Why is this a problem? Because Taiwan is contested. Beijing says Taiwan is a part of China, like a breakaway province, and they vow to take it back by force if necessary. Taiwan, on the other side, calls itself an independent democracy. And now Chinese mouthpieces are quoting Jaishankar as saying that Taiwan is a part of China. They're playing it up as Indian endorsement of the Chinese position. But that's not what happened. A short while back, India's External Affairs Ministry issued a statement. It confirmed that there was no such affirmation from the Indian side and that India's position on Taiwan remains unchanged. Now, officially, India does not recognize Taiwan as independent, but this position is a bit nuanced. Just like China and most of the world, India maintains ties with Taiwan, especially in areas like trade, technology, and culture. We have a relationship, and New Delhi plans to continue that relationship. In fact, when Wang Yi asked India to cut ties with Taiwan, Jaishankar's response was clear. China itself engages with Taiwan in all these areas. How can it ask India to cut ties? Jaishankar also raised another issue: China's plans to build a mega dam on the Brahmaputra River. The Indian minister sought transparency from Beijing about this project. And in the same spirit, India has maintained that differences should not become disputes.
Having seen a difficult period in our relationship, Excellency, our two nations now seek to move ahead. This requires a candid and constructive approach from both sides. In that endeavor, we must be guided by the three mutuals: mutual respect, mutual sensitivity, and mutual interest. Differences must not become disputes, nor competition, conflict.
This friction should not be surprising. It should keep India on its guard while dealing with China. At the same time, it should not be allowed to derail the momentum because the India-China reset is being shaped by a wider geopolitical context. One big factor is Donald Trump's economic policy, his tariffs, his trade war. They've pushed the two Asian giants together. So this reset is driven by mutual interest. It is driven by economics and by strategic calculation. Expect both sides to build on it when Prime Minister Modi visits China later this month. Train journeys can be exciting, partly because you can travel without the headache of watching the wait, the headache of baggage limits, the kind we have to endure when we take a flight. But the Indian Railways have said not anymore. They have come out with an airline-style policy. So now there will be strict regulations in terms of the weight and size of the luggage that you can carry. And if you fail to comply, you shall be fined. But what's behind this move? Is this a new concept in India? And do other countries have restrictions on train baggage? Here's a report.
Before you head to that dream vacation, a painful task stands in the way. Packing. Suitcases, duffel bags, carry-ons, all kinds of what-ifs are taken into consideration. Far too many clothes are packed, and then an extra outfit is thrown in just in case. If you're traveling by flight, you will bring in the big guns, a weighing machine or a luggage scale, and reassess your baggage. But if you're traveling by train, do you really need to go through the trouble? If your answer is no, then think again. Because the Indian Railways are going the airline way, with a tighter baggage policy, including strict regulations in terms of the weight and size of the luggage. If this sounds too airport style to be true, know that these luggage restrictions are not new. They have existed for years, but they were rarely enforced. Now the Railway Board has said that they will. Travellers will be required to pass their luggage through electronic weighing machines. A number of railway stations will be a part of this initial rollout. So what are the baggage limits? They vary by class. For instance, AC first class passengers are allowed up to 70 kilograms, AC 2 tier up to 50 kilograms. AC 3 tier and sleeper class are permitted 40 kilograms, while 35 kilograms for the general or sitting class travellers. Excess luggage can be booked separately, but if not, then those carrying baggage beyond the allowed limit or luggage that is too bulky despite being underweight will be subject to penalties. They will be charged 6 times the regular fee for that extra weight. What's behind this? Aircraft have baggage limits for safety and operational reasons. Limits ensure a safe takeoff, flight, and landing, while also optimizing fuel consumption. As for the railways, the move is aimed at reducing congestion while maintaining safety and efficiency. This is exactly why India is not an isolated case. Most rail systems the world over come with baggage restrictions. If passengers bring more than 2 suitcases on a Eurostar trip to London, they have to pay about $46 extra. In some French trains, passengers are limited to 2 large pieces of baggage, which fall within specific measurements. And starting next month, if passengers exceed the limit, they face a €50 or about a $60 fine. And with global luggage restrictions, the extra charges are a boost to rail operations. Again, look at the airline industry. They have turned the baggage fees into a multi-billion-dollar profit-making machine. Last year alone, US airlines collected a record-breaking $7.2 billion. The overall global cost of airline extra fees is going up. They are expected to reach $145 billion this year. That's 14% of the sector's total revenues. It includes a range of things from seat selection to buying Wi-Fi access, and luggage charges are a big part of it. Could rail operations be taking the same route? If so, the Indian Railways is set to get a boost. After all, it is one of the largest railway systems in the world, carrying about 23 million passengers daily. The extra luggage charges are bound to add to the revenue. As for you, whatever the preference, airlines or railways, remember to always watch the weight in the battle of the baggage.
Our next story is from India's financial capital, Mumbai. By this afternoon, the city was drowning in déjà vu. Nearly 300 millimeters of rain in 24 hours, a red alert from the weather office. India's financial hub looked more like a water park that no one bought tickets for. Roads turned into rivers, railway tracks disappeared, flights were diverted mid-air, the Miti River nearly burst its banks, schools were shut, residents were evacuated, cars were abandoned in the middle of the road, people waded barefoot through waist-deep water, and even the monorail broke down with passengers stuck inside the train. Mumbai's arteries were jammed. Traffic crawled like a reluctant snail. On social media, several videos went viral. Office-goers rolling up trousers, an auto rickshaw floating by, and the familiar joke returned to WhatsApp groups. In Mumbai, a kayak may be a safer investment than a car. The Met Department says the downpour will continue. Guess it's time we end the debate. It is not Bombay or Mumbai. The name of this city is Atlantis. And the joke stopped being funny a long time ago because the city is sinking, paralyzed once again. This year's deluge may look merciless, but it's not unprecedented. The warnings come every year, and every year the BMC promises that it is better prepared. That's the city's municipal corporation, the BMC. And every year, the first serious downpour proves otherwise. Waterlogging is the new normal. The phrase has become a city-wide mantra. It is accepted almost wearily, like traffic jams or Bollywood sequels. It's a fact of life. But here's the kicker. Calling it the new normal is not just lazy, it is dangerous. Because what are we really normalizing? The crumbling infrastructure? Problems with urban design? Or general apathy? What exactly is this new normal? We say Mumbai is resilient, Mumbai is tough. It survived terror attacks and riots. It's a city that never stops until the rains come. The rains bring the city to its knees. So the people pitch in. Stranded commuters share umbrellas with strangers, shopkeepers hand out free biscuits, strangers push stalled taxis. It's touching. And the world celebrates it as Mumbai's spirit. But honestly, what choice do they have? Also, here's the thing about spirit. It's not supposed to be a substitute for crumbling infrastructure. You cannot fix drainage with optimism. You cannot fix streets with solidarity. And you definitely cannot keep a city of 20 million people running on nothing but resilience. It's as if the city is trapped in a time loop. 2005, 2017, 2019, 2021, 2023, and now 2025. Different years, same script. Resilient, yes. Prepared, never. The government issues advisories, airlines issue advisories, railways issue advisories, but they never address the real problem. And the tragedy of Mumbai is not just that it floods every year, it is that it floods every year in exactly the same way for exactly the same reasons, and nobody seems particularly interested or concerned about fixing the issue. This is a city that contributes more than 6% to India's GDP. It is the country's financial capital, home to Bollywood stars and industrialists. Yet, a drainage system stuck in the British era. So you may ask, what next? Will Mumbai flood again next year? Yes, it will. That's not even the question. The question is, will we still be calling it resilience when it's actually resignation? And there's no denying the heroism of ordinary citizens, but heroism should not be an annual civic requirement. At some point, spirit needs to transform into outrage, into demanding accountability, because otherwise, every August headline will remain the same: Mumbai flooded again. And the saddest part, we will call it normal. In Donald Trump's Delulu land, the war in DR Congo has ended after the US helped broker a deal between the DRC and Rwanda. But here on planet Earth, the fighting is still raging in the Central African country. In recent weeks, violence has surged in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Rebel groups have been fighting for power, for control of its mineral-rich eastern region. More than 50 people have been killed this week. This happened in an attack by an ISIS-backed rebel group. Meanwhile, things are not going well with the Rwanda-backed group, M23. A peace deal has faltered. Talks were supposed to be held in Qatar this week between the M23 and the DRC government. But the rebel group never showed up. Here's a report.
This is the Democratic Republic of Congo, the second largest country in Africa. This Central African nation is rich in minerals, and it has been dogged by conflict for more than 30 years, since the 1994 genocide in Rwanda. While central authorities have struggled to hold on to power, many armed groups have competed for the resource-rich eastern DRC. The most prominent among them is the militant group M23. Fighting escalated in January this year, when the M23 captured large parts of the eastern region, including the regional capital Goma. Since then, the conflict has simmered. M23 has made rapid advances. The instability has resulted in thousands of deaths and left a trail of failed peace talks. This led to an intervention by Qatar. After mediation by Qatari officials, hope returned to the DRC last month. M23 and the government signed a ceasefire agreement in Doha. This was seen as a step towards a permanent peace deal. Earlier this week, a draft agreement of the prospective deal was reportedly shared with both the parties. And on Monday, negotiations were set to resume in Qatar. The peace deal was supposed to be signed, but M23 representatives never made the trip. They walked away from the peace talks. Why is that? Apparently, because the Congolese government doesn't want peace. This is what the M23 is saying. They claim that government forces continue to attack rebel positions. They have accused the authorities of not respecting the previous ceasefire deal, which was mediated by the US. They say that until this happens, there will be no peace deal. But the government has denied this accusation. They have accused the M23 of launching attacks regularly, including almost daily attacks in the North Kivu and South Kivu provinces. These are the two regions where M23 has been making major advances. As tensions continue between the DRC army and the M23, the country has seen renewed violence by other rebel groups, including the ISIS-backed Allied Democratic Forces, or ADF. Recently, they targeted the Beni and Lubero territories in the eastern North Kivu province. They kidnapped people, looted and burned homes, and killed at least 52 civilians. Last month, the same group stormed a Catholic church, opened fire on worshippers, and killed nearly 40 people. As violence surges, the government is scrambling to control the situation by shifting focus on peace deals. The agreement with M23 has already faltered. Now, another peace deal hangs in the balance. The agreement between Rwanda and DR Congo. Rwanda has been widely accused of backing the M23, which it denies. In June, the US brokered a peace deal between the two countries. President Donald Trump called it a glorious triumph, which could grant Washington access to DR Congo's vast mineral wealth and potentially stop fighting in the region. But amid the increase in violence, many fear that the talks could get derailed. So as the government trades blame with rebel groups, conflict in the DRC oscillates between simmering and surging, and peace has been put on the back burner.
Artificial intelligence, or AI. It has been pitched as capitalism's new golden goose. Generative AI was supposed to do it all, write our emails, reinvent customer service, and even reshape entire economies. But as we near 2026, the goose is looking less golden. It's more like a very expensive pigeon. And I'm not the one saying this. A new MIT study says the quiet part out loud. 95% of enterprise AI pilots fail. 95%. They do not deliver any meaningful revenue impact. So why is AI struggling to live up to its hype? In Silicon Valley, hype moves faster than product market fit. Take OpenAI, Google and Anthropic, for example. They drop their shiny new models. Companies sprint to adopt them, to build their own tools around them. Every Monday is AI Monday. Meetings are cancelled, roadmaps are rewritten, budgets are reallocated, all in the service of the AI pivot. But here's the hangover. Only about 5% of pilots actually boosted revenues in a measurable way. For the rest, the dashboards looked busy, but the bottom line stayed stubbornly flat. And here's another revelation. Companies that buy specialized tools succeed more. They succeed twice as often as those trying to build their own. But try telling that to the enterprising CEO. So the result is this: thousands of internal builds that get stuck in endless beta testing. And by the time the system works, ChatGPT has already released its next version, leaving the enterprise tool obsolete even before it's deployed. Also, here's another dirty secret. Most corporate AI budgets are getting sunk into sales and marketing gimmicks. Think AI email writers, AI pitch decks, AI lead generators. But what's the real return on investment, or ROI as they call it? It's in back office automation, like cutting down grunt work, streamlining operations. That is where AI really shines. The math is clear, but the psychology is not. Because companies often just love shiny dashboards. But all of this raises a question we have often asked. Is artificial intelligence a bubble? Sam Altman recently answered this question, and it's not what you would expect. The OpenAI CEO, Sam Altman, says this is indeed a bubble. But in his words, it's a bubble built around a kernel of truth. And that phrase is important here, the kernel of truth. It is what made the dot-com boom so intoxicating. Back then, the internet was the next big thing. It was going to change everything. Billions were poured into half-baked ideas. Thousands of companies sprouted. Yes, the internet did change a lot, but it did not change everything. Pets.com was not Amazon. Webvan was not Instacart. The Nasdaq lost nearly 80% of its value between the years 2000 and 2002, but from that wreckage emerged the giants: Google, Amazon, eBay. The AI cycle looks eerily similar. Trillions are being funneled into data centers and startups. Every corporate strategy memo has AI stapled onto it, the same way .com was 2 decades ago. And yet, beneath the froth, there is a revolution. There is no doubt that we will have AI tools we cannot imagine yet. But there's also a mismatch between investor expectations and real-world adoption. And that's what creates the bubble. In fact, the biggest example is OpenAI. The company is yet to become profitable. It tells you all you need to know about the AI bubble. It is not bursting yet, but it's definitely stretching. And stretched bubbles rarely deflate politely. We told you about the Mumbai rains. It's pretty gloomy stuff. The only saving grace is the memes, especially those on employees in Mumbai. The floods have forced most companies to shift online. They've asked their employees to work from home. On cue, the memes flooded in. Yes, it's funny, but it's also a sad commentary on India's financial capital. Take a look at this. Now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. Kim Jong-un visits a North Korean naval destroyer. A dramatic view of Hurricane Erin's eye shows planes flying through the powerful storm. And Sweden relocates an entire church on wheels. Finally, we are taking you back in history. On this day in 1953, a CIA-assisted coup overthrew the government in Iran. It was against Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh. The coup restored power to Iran's Shah, who was an American ally. In 2023, CIA admitted that its actions were undemocratic. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Firstpost now available in 9 languages on YouTube. English,
Stands at $36 trillion.
French,
Le FMI, comme
German,
Geschäftsführenden Direktor,
Hindi,
$30 trillion ka-charge
Indonesian,
pemerintah tanpa pemeriksaan.
Italian,
Sekali radikali.
Japanese,
4 兆ドル以上も
Portuguese,
por causa do próprio balanço patrimonial.
Spanish.
Beautiful bill.
Go to Settings, click on Audio Track and select the language of your choice. Be the first to know what's happening around you in your first language. Firstpost.